May 18, 2004, was supposed to be a day of celebration and achievement for Riverside Elementary School in the small town of Millbrook, Pennsylvania. The annual Academic Excellence Awards ceremony was the highlight of the school year, honoring the brightest students who had demonstrated exceptional performance in various subjects throughout the academic year. 11 exceptional children, ranging in ages from 8 to 11, had been selected to attend a special field trip to the Regional Science Center as part of their recognition. These young scholars, Emma Patterson, Tyler Chin, Sophia Rodriguez, Marcus Williams, Lily Thompson, Nathan Brooks, Isabella Garcia, Owen Mitchell, Zoe Anderson, Caleb Foster, and Maya Patel, boarded School Bus 47 that sunny Tuesday morning with excitement and pride, unaware that they were about to become the center of one of the most baffling missing persons cases in Pennsylvania history. When the submerged remains of their school bus were discovered 10 years later in Hartwell Lake, the mystery only deepened, revealing circumstances so impossible that they challenged everything we thought we knew about the laws of physics and the nature of reality itself. The children selected for this special field trip represented the very best of Riverside Elementary's student body. Emma Patterson, age 10, was a gifted writer who had already won several regional poetry contests and dreamed of becoming a novelist. Her teacher, Mrs. Morrison, often said that Emma had the rare ability to see the world through eyes that were both innocent and wise beyond her years. Tyler Chen, 9 years old, was a mathematics prodigy, whose parents had immigrated from China and instilled in him a deep appreciation for academic excellence and hard work. Sophia Rodriguez, age 11, was bilingual and served as a translator for new Spanish-speaking students, showing compassion and leadership that impressed both teachers and fellow students. Marcus Williams, 10 years old, was fascinated by history and could recite facts about ancient civilizations with the enthusiasm of a professional archaeologist. Lily Thompson, age 8, was the youngest member of the group but had already demonstrated exceptional abilities in science, conducting experiments that amazed her teachers and classmates. Nathan Brooks, age 10, was a gifted artist whose drawings and paintings decorated the walls of the school and brought joy to everyone who saw them. Isabella Garcia, 9 years old, had overcome significant challenges in her young life, including a learning disability that she had conquered through determination and the support of dedicated teachers. Owen Mitchell, age 11, was a natural leader who organized student activities and helped younger children feel included and valued. Zoe Anderson, 10 years old, was passionate about environmental conservation and had already started a recycling program at the school. Caleb Foster, age 9, was a talented musician who played 3 instruments and often performed at school events. Maya Patel, age 10, had recently moved to Millbrook from India and had quickly adapted to her new environment while maintaining her cultural heritage and sharing it with her classmates. The field trip to the Regional Science Center had been planned for months as a reward for these outstanding students and an opportunity to inspire them to continue pursuing academic excellence. The Science Center, located approximately 90 minutes from Millbrook, featured interactive exhibits on space exploration, marine biology, physics, and environmental science that would complement the students' classroom learning and spark their curiosity about the natural world. Bus driver Harold Hal Peterson had been transporting Millbrook students for over 20 years and was known throughout the community as a careful, responsible driver who treated every child as if they were his own grandchildren. At 62 years old, Hal had an impeccable safety record and was beloved by students who appreciated his gentle demeanor and the way he remembered their names, interests, and family circumstances. He had volunteered to drive the special trip because he was proud of these exceptional students and wanted to be part of their recognition. The bus departed Riverside Elementary at 8:30 a.m. on that Tuesday morning, with Hal conducting his usual safety check and ensuring that all 11 children were properly seated and secured. Mrs. Sarah Hendricks, a veteran teacher with 15 years of experience, accompanied the group as their chaperone. She had taught several of these children in previous years and was excited to share this special experience with them. The planned route to the Science Center was straightforward, taking them along State Route 15 through several small towns and rural areas before connecting to the interstate highway. Hal had driven this route many times before and was familiar with every curve, hill, and landmark along the way. The weather was perfect for travel, with clear skies, excellent visibility, and no precipitation in the forecast. At 9:15 a.m., Hal radioed the school's transportation office to report that they were making good time and expected to arrive at the Science Center slightly ahead of schedule. This was the last communication anyone had with Bus 47 and the 13 people aboard it. When the bus failed to arrive at the Science Center by the expected time of 10 a.m., officials there contacted Riverside Elementary to inquire about any delays. The initial assumption was that the bus had experienced mechanical problems or had been delayed by traffic, both common occurrences that rarely caused serious concern. However, when attempts to reach Hal Peterson by radio were unsuccessful, school administrators began to worry. By 11 a.m., when there had been no word from the bus for nearly 2 hours, a full-scale search operation was launched. Law enforcement agencies from multiple counties coordinated their efforts to locate the missing school bus, with officers patrolling every possible route between Millbrook and the Science Center. Helicopter searches began immediately, scanning the highway corridors and surrounding areas for any sign of the distinctive yellow school bus. State police established roadblocks and questioned drivers who might have seen Bus 47 during its journey. The search revealed that the bus had been seen by several witnesses during the early part of its journey, confirming that it had followed the planned route for at least the first 30 minutes after leaving the school. A convenience store clerk remembered Hal stopping briefly to purchase coffee, which was part of his usual routine on longer trips. Security cameras at a highway rest stop showed the bus passing by at approximately 9 a.m., with all occupants appearing normal and the vehicle operating properly. But after that point, Bus 47 seemed to have vanished completely. Despite intensive searches involving hundreds of law enforcement officers, volunteers, and aircraft, no trace of the bus, its driver, or the 11 children could be found anywhere along the planned route or in the surrounding areas. The disappearance was so complete and inexplicable that investigators began to consider increasingly unlikely scenarios to explain what had happened. The families of the missing children experienced a nightmare that no parent should ever have to endure. Emma's parents, both teachers themselves, used their educational networks to coordinate volunteer search efforts and maintain pressure on authorities to continue looking for their daughter. Tyler's immigrant parents, despite language barriers, worked tirelessly with law enforcement and hired private investigators to supplement the official search. Sophia's grandmother, who had raised her after her parents died in a car accident, refused to give up hope and organized prayer vigils that brought the entire Latino community together in support. Marcus's father, a veteran of the Gulf War, used his military training to organize systematic ground searches of areas that official teams might have missed. Lily's mother, a nurse, provided medical support to other families while dealing with her own devastating loss. Nathan's parents, both artists, created posters and artwork that kept their son's image in the public eye and helped maintain awareness of the case. Isabella's family, despite their modest means, spent their life savings on private investigators and reward money for information about their daughter. Owen's parents organized support groups for other families of missing children, channeling their grief into helping others facing similar tragedies. Zoe's environmentalist parents used their connections in conservation organizations to search remote natural areas where the bus might have gone off. Caleb's musical family organized benefit concerts to raise money for the search efforts and to support other families. Maya's parents, who had recently immigrated to the United States, struggled with language barriers while navigating the complex systems of law enforcement and media attention. The media coverage of the case was intense and sustained, with national news programs featuring the story and the photographs of the 11 missing children becoming familiar to people across the country. The case generated thousands of tips and reported sightings, but none led to credible information about what had happened to Bus 47 and its occupants. Various theories emerged to explain the disappearance, ranging from the plausible to the bizarre. Some investigators suspected that the bus had been hijacked by criminals, possibly for ransom or human trafficking purposes. Others believed that Hal Peterson might have suffered a medical emergency that caused him to lose control of the vehicle, resulting in an accident in a location that hadn't been discovered yet. More exotic theories suggested everything from alien abduction to secret government experiments, but these were generally dismissed by serious investigators who focused on more conventional explanations. However, as months turned into years without any evidence being found, even the most skeptical investigators began to acknowledge that something truly unusual had occurred. The case had a profound impact on the entire community of Millbrook, transforming a quiet small town into the center of a national mystery. Local businesses displayed missing child posters in their windows, and yellow ribbons appeared throughout the town as symbols of hope for the children's safe return. The school district implemented new safety protocols for field trips, including GPS tracking devices on all buses and more frequent communication requirements. Riverside Elementary created a memorial garden in honor of the missing children, with 11 trees planted to represent each child and a bench where people could sit and remember them. The garden became a place of pilgrimage for families dealing with missing children and a symbol of the community's refusal to forget the 11 young scholars who had vanished without a trace. As years passed without resolution, the case gradually faded from national attention but remained an open wound in the hearts of the families and the Millbrook community. The children would have graduated from high school, started college, begun careers, and perhaps started families of their own. Their parents marked these milestones with private ceremonies and continued to hope that somehow, someway, their children would return to them. The breakthrough that no one expected came on September 22, 2014, exactly 10 years and 4 months after the disappearance. A team of environmental scientists conducting a routine survey of Hartwell Lake, located approximately 40 miles from the planned route to the Science Center, discovered what appeared to be a large yellow object submerged in the deepest part of the lake. Hartwell Lake was a man-made reservoir created by a dam built in the 1960s, and the deep, cold water had excellent preservation properties that kept submerged objects in remarkable condition. When divers were sent down to investigate the yellow object, they made a discovery that shocked everyone involved in the case and raised more questions than it answered. The object was indeed Bus 47, sitting upright on the lake bottom in approximately 120 feet of water. The bus appeared to be in perfect condition, with no visible damage to its exterior and all windows intact. Most remarkably, the bus was positioned in a location that should have been impossible for it to reach, given that there were no roads leading to that part of the lake and the surrounding terrain was too rugged for a school bus to navigate. Recovery operation required specialized equipment and expert divers due to the depth and challenging conditions at the bottom of Hartwell Lake. When the bus was finally raised to the surface and transported to a forensic facility for examination, investigators made discoveries that defied explanation and challenged their understanding of what had happened to the missing children and their driver. The interior of the bus was perfectly preserved, with no water damage despite having been submerged for 10 years. The children's backpacks, books, and personal belongings were found exactly where they had been left, as if the bus had just arrived at the bottom of the lake. Most puzzling of all, there were no human remains found inside the bus, despite the fact that all windows and doors were closed and there was no obvious way for 13 people to have escaped from a bus sitting on the bottom of a deep lake. Forensic analysis of the bus revealed several anomalies that couldn't be explained by conventional science. The metal showed signs of exposure to electromagnetic fields far stronger than anything that should exist naturally on Earth. The bus's electrical systems had been completely fried, but in patterns that suggested the damage had occurred instantaneously, and from an external source rather than from water damage or normal deterioration. Most mysteriously, the bus's odometer showed that it had traveled an additional 2,847 miles beyond what should have been possible given its last known location and the place where it was found. The fuel tank was completely empty, but there was no trace of fuel spillage in the lake water around the bus. The engine showed signs of having run for extended periods at temperatures that should have caused it to seize up and fail completely. The discovery of the submerged bus reopened the investigation with new urgency and resources. FBI agents specializing in unexplained phenomena joined the case, bringing with them advanced forensic techniques and access to classified technologies that had been developed for studying anomalous events. The bus was transported to a secure facility where it was examined by teams of scientists from various disciplines. Analysis of water samples from inside the bus revealed chemical compositions that didn't match Hartwell Lake or any known body of water in the region. The water contained trace elements and isotopic signatures that suggested it had come from multiple different sources, some of which couldn't be identified or matched to any location on Earth. Paint samples from the bus's exterior showed exposure to radiation levels that were far above background normal but not high enough to be lethal. The pattern of radiation exposure suggested that the bus had been in proximity to a source of energy that was both powerful and precisely controlled, leaving specific areas affected while leaving others completely untouched. The children's belongings provided additional clues that deepened the mystery rather than solving it. Notebooks contained entries dated days and weeks after the disappearance, written in the children's own handwriting but describing experiences and locations that seemed to exist outside normal reality. The entries were consistent among all 11 children, describing similar events and encounters in ways that suggested they had shared extraordinary experiences together. Emma's notebook contained poems about walking between worlds and learning from teachers made of light. Tyler's math homework included calculations using number systems that didn't correspond to any known mathematical principles. Sophia's journal included entries written in languages that linguistics experts couldn't identify, despite containing grammatical structures that suggested they were genuine communication systems rather than random symbols. Marcus's history notes described civilizations and events that had no correspondence to Earth's historical record but were internally consistent and detailed enough to suggest they came from actual observations rather than imagination. Lily's science journal contained diagrams and formulas that described physical principles that were beyond current human understanding but mathematically coherent. Nathan's sketchbooks were filled with drawings of landscapes, beings, and structures that were unlike anything found on Earth, but rendered with technical precision that suggested he had been drawing from direct observation. Isabella's writing samples showed dramatic improvement in her penmanship and language skills, as if she had received intensive educational intervention during her absence. Owen's leadership notes described organizing activities and solving problems in environments that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Zoe's environmental observations included detailed studies of ecosystems that operated according to principles that were completely different from Earth's biological systems. Caleb's musical compositions were written in notation systems that music theorists had never encountered but that followed logical patterns suggesting they represented genuine musical languages. Maya's cultural studies included descriptions of societies and customs that drew from her Indian heritage while incorporating elements that seemed to come from civilizations that had never existed on Earth. The consistency and detail of these accounts across all 11 children suggested that they had shared experiences that were far beyond anything that could be explained by conventional understanding. The most significant discovery came when investigators found a video recording device that had been hidden in Hal Peterson's belongings. The device was of a design that hadn't been available in 2004 and incorporated technologies that still didn't exist commercially in 2014. When the device was finally activated using procedures that were discovered through trial and error, it revealed footage that challenged everything investigators thought they knew about the disappearance. The recording showed the bus traveling along roads that existed in landscapes completely unlike anywhere on Earth. The children could be seen looking out the windows at scenery that included multiple suns in the sky, floating land masses, and vegetation that seemed to glow with its own internal light. Hal Peterson appeared calm and focused as he drove, as if he was following a route he had traveled many times before. The children in the video seemed excited rather than frightened, pointing out interesting sights to each other and asking questions about their surroundings. Mrs. Hendricks could be heard explaining what they were seeing, as if she had knowledge about their destination and the purpose of their journey. The atmosphere on the bus was educational and adventurous rather than fearful or confused. The video recording also showed the children being greeted by beings that appeared humanoid, but were clearly not human. These beings were tall, graceful, and seemed to communicate through a combination of spoken language and direct mental contact. The children responded to these beings with curiosity and respect rather than fear, suggesting that their encounters had been positive and educational rather than traumatic. Additional footage showed the children participating in learning experiences that seemed to take place in environments that defied physical laws as understood on Earth. They were seen floating in spaces that had no apparent gravity, manipulating objects that responded to thought rather than touch, and observing phenomena that existed in multiple dimensions. Simultaneously, the educational content of these experiences was clearly advanced beyond anything available in terrestrial schools, covering subjects that ranged from advanced physics and mathematics to philosophy and consciousness studies that wouldn't be introduced in Earth schools until university level or beyond. The children appeared to be thriving in this educational environment, demonstrating intellectual growth and emotional maturity that was remarkable for their ages. The investigation team consulted with experts in various fields to analyze the video, evidence, and the other artifacts recovered from the bus. Physicists studied the footage of environments that seemed to operate according to different physical laws, while educators analyzed the learning experiences shown in the recordings. Psychologists examined the children's behavior and responses to determine whether they were experiencing trauma or benefiting from their unusual circumstances. The consensus among experts was that the evidence was genuine and that the children had somehow been transported to an educational environment that existed outside normal space and time. The purpose appeared to be providing them with advanced learning opportunities that would prepare them for roles as bridges between Earth's civilization and more advanced societies that existed elsewhere in the universe. Government agencies classified much of the evidence and restricted access to the video recordings, citing national security concerns and the potential for public panic if the full extent of the discoveries were revealed. However, the families of the missing children were provided with edited versions of the recordings that showed their children were safe, happy, and receiving extraordinary educational opportunities. The knowledge that their children were alive and thriving in circumstances that were beyond normal human experience brought mixed emotions to the families. They were relieved to know that the children hadn't suffered or died, but they were also frustrated by their inability to communicate with them or know when they might return. The investigation revealed that similar disappearances had occurred in other parts of the world, always involving exceptionally gifted children who had been selected for advanced educational opportunities that couldn't be provided within normal Earth-based institutions. The pattern suggested that humanity was being prepared for eventual contact with more advanced civilizations through the education of specially selected young people who would serve as ambassadors and interpreters. The bus was eventually returned to a storage facility where it continues to be studied by researchers trying to understand the technologies and principles that made such transportation possible. The case remains officially open, but the investigation has shifted from trying to find missing children to trying to understand the implications of contact with civilizations that possess capabilities far beyond current human knowledge. the families, have formed a support group for others who have experienced similar unexplained disappearances, sharing their knowledge while maintaining the secrecy required by government classification of the evidence. They continue to hope for the eventual return of their children, while also taking pride in knowing that their young scholars have been chosen for educational opportunities that may ultimately benefit all of humanity. The town of Millbrook has quietly become a center for research into unexplained phenomena, with several scientific institutions establishing research facilities in the area to study similar cases and to monitor for any signs of additional contact events. The Memorial Garden at Riverside Elementary has been expanded to honor all children who have disappeared under unusual circumstances, serving as a symbol of hope that they are safe and learning in environments that provide opportunities far beyond what Earth can offer. Do you believe that some missing children cases might involve educational opportunities that exist beyond our normal understanding of reality? Can you imagine the mixture of relief and longing that these families must feel, knowing their children are safe but living in circumstances that are impossible to reach or understand? The story of Bus 47 and its 11 young passengers challenges us to consider that the universe might contain learning opportunities that transcend the limitations of earthbound education. But what would you do if you discovered that your missing child had been selected for an educational program that operated according to principles beyond current human knowledge? Would you want them to return to the limitations of Earth-based learning, or would you be proud that they had been chosen for opportunities that might ultimately help advance all of humanity? If this story has opened your mind to possibilities about education and consciousness that go beyond conventional understanding, share it with others who might find hope in knowing that some disappearances might involve opportunities rather than tragedies. Let the experience of these families inspire you to remain open to learning experiences that challenge everything we think we know about intelligence, consciousness, and the true potential of human development.